All right, welcome to our public hearing this Friday evening on our Ohio Citizens Redistricting Commission proposed unity maps for the state House and state Senate. I am co-chair of the Citizens Commission. My name's Kathleen Clyde. Very happy to be joined by my esteemed fellow co-chair, Greg Moore. And we also have our vice chair here this evening, Janice Brock, who I'm glad to see her internet is working well. We may have some technical difficulties, but so far so good. Also, while we don't have our full commission present tonight, we are joined by a number of our commissioners, and we may be joined by some more who straggle in, but we're very glad to have Dr. Ellen Green Bush, Andre Washington, and Dr. Elise Regula with us here this evening. So with that, we have a presentation to give about our maps, but just very briefly, I'd like to pause and ask Janice or Greg if you'd like to say a couple of words of welcome.
Well, I would like to again thank people for joining, thank the commissioners for joining us again on a Friday evening. I gotta say one thing about this commission, it shows up, and we've been doing this since May. And a lot of us been doing a lot of work before that. In fact, I'm looking at Shanice now and the months and months, and it took to put this together before we even got into agreement to do this. So thank you for everybody joining us, and thank you for those who are going to join us tonight. We're looking forward to a good session. Janice?
Yeah, I'll just be really quick and say that I appreciate everyone on this commission. This is a volunteer commission, nonpartisan. So folks are coming here because they really care about the process, and they really care about fair maps here in Ohio to give everyday Ohioans a fair shot. So we're really excited that you've come here. We are open to your thoughts, comments, and questions about the maps that we release. We value your opinion, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Janice. So just a very quick preview before we queue up the slides. We will be going over our maps tonight, and then we would be happy to hear questions or comments from the public who are attending. You can use the chat function or the Q&A function, and we will endeavor to respond to any questions that we see. Also, commissioners, feel free to weigh in with questions or comments of your own, or that you maybe have had passed along to you in your conversations out in the community since we released the maps. Finally, we will be voting as a commission, full commission, on Sunday to finalize these maps based on this input that we're receiving. And then we will be presenting them to the official commission that we hope will be scheduling their public hearings that they are required to have once they introduce a map. They are required to have 3 public hearings by September 1st, which is next Wednesday. We haven't heard anything about whether those will be scheduled yet. We hope they follow the Constitution and do so, and we will be at those hearings with our maps and testifying and presenting them for the official record to be considered. So with that, let's queue up the slide presentation, and I'll just briefly walk you through our maps. So here is an overview of what is sort of the different rules and criteria that we had to consider and juggle for making sure that we could draw fair maps that followed all of the requirements under the Constitution and, of course, federal law. Under federal law, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 requires that voters of color can elect representatives of their choosing. So this is followed in our map by ensuring that we have in our House map, we have 12 minority opportunity districts, meaning that 12 of the districts that we drew have a Black voting population of at least 30%. And then 2 additional seats are within 2% of the minority opportunity threshold. So I believe one's at 29% and one's at 28%. So very close to that threshold, and meeting that requirement that voters of color are able to elect representatives of their choosing. And on the Senate map, we have 4 minority opportunity districts. That's defined the same for the Senate map. That means that a Senate district has a Black voting age population of at least 30%. And then 2 additional districts are within 2% of that threshold. Next slide. Thanks. So now we move on to the requirements in the Ohio Constitution as amended by Ohio voters in the reform initiative that was passed overwhelmingly back in 2015 to develop this process for how we will achieve fairer maps in Ohio. So under the Ohio Constitution, of course, each district must have equal population. The way that that population is calculated is you take the overall 2020 census number and you divide it by 99 to get the population for each House district, since there's 99 districts, and you divide that overall number by 33 to get the population for each of Ohio Senate districts. Now, there is a margin of 5% above or below that target number that you can still go and be within the constitutional requirement of equal population. It spells that out right in the Constitution. So for the House map, that means that each of the 99 districts contain between 113,000 and 125,000 persons. And each Senate district contains between 339,000 people and 375,000 people. And again, that's the whole population, including not just registered voters, but children, and the whole population of Ohio is how we derive that number. Next up is the representational fairness requirement in the Ohio Constitution. What that requirement means is that the map of the districts, the partisanship breakdown of that map should closely align with the partisan makeup of Ohio. Right now, we all probably well know that we have a very skewed map when it comes to representational fairness and partisanship. That while Ohio is, as we calculated, about a 54-46 split between Republicans and Democrats, our maps are much more divided, and we have Republican supermajorities in both the Ohio House and the Ohio Senate, and that is not a district that does not reflect the partisanship of Ohio. To get that 54-46 number, we averaged the results of the last 5 general elections. The candidates for president, US Senator, governor, secretary of state, auditor, attorney general, and treasurer in those 5 general elections to get that partisanship number. And that comes right out of the Constitution, how you arrive at that partisanship index. So if you look at our House map, We drew a map that has 55 Republican leaning districts and 44 Democratic leaning districts. That's a 56 to 44% ratio, so very close to that target ratio of 54-46. And then our Senate map has 18 Republican leaning districts and 15 Democratic leaning districts for a 55-45 ratio, again, very close to that target. So you'll see in the maps how that breaks down, but that is a very key part to ending the partisan gerrymandering that has plagued our state for so long. And again, it's required right there in the Constitution. Next slide, please. Of course, in the Constitution, there are many detailed rules now laying out specific requirements to prevent the unnecessary breaking apart of counties, municipalities, and townships so that we are able to keep our communities together. We followed those rules very closely, and in both our House map and our Senate map, none of those rules were broken in how we drew our map. So none of the rules about breaking apart cities or counties can be found in our map. So we followed those requirements very closely. Next slide, please. And then finally, these are important, but I think some of the more obvious requirements. Of course, General Assembly districts shall be compact and contiguous. Both our Senate and House maps meet this requirement. And then for the Senate map, each Senate district has 3 nested contiguous House districts within each Senate district. That is required by the Constitution, and our Senate map meets that requirement. So here are the maps. Of course, you'll see on the left is the House map, on the right is the Senate map. We colored them to show you the partisan breakdown to give you an idea of how we met that requirement of representational fairness. They are shaded in, the more competitive is the lighter shading and darker shading is less competitive. But we have a number of competitive seats on both maps. And then you have seats on both maps that are pretty solid Republican and pretty solid Democratic as well. So take a look at that. We'll pop over to the last slide in our presentation, which zooms in a bit for you on the House map on our 3 biggest counties. So you can get a better sense of the district lines within those counties. It's a little hard to see on the bigger map. But if you look at Franklin, Cuyahoga, and Hamilton counties, you'll see how the House districts are split up within those counties, again, following the rules that we're not breaking up municipalities or breaking up the counties themselves more than once, which is all that is allowed under the Constitution. So with that, let's keep it on this slide. And at this time, we'd ask any members of the public who are viewing this webinar to give us any questions or comments that you have through the chat. Looks like there is one question. Deidre, thank you so much for your question. It says that we currently have 13 African-American legislators and 1 vacant seat that was represented by an African-American. Do we have less than 12 minority opportunity districts currently? Currently, our map has a number of districts that are held by African Americans that are not minority opportunity districts, and that is we would hope that would be able to continue. And I'm not sure our exact number of minority opportunity districts currently, but I believe we are pretty close to that number in our map, if not better than the map drawn in 2011. Next question again from Deidre. Did we use the actual 2020 census data with racial breakdown to determine minority opportunity districts or the proposed census data? We use the actual 2020 census data. One thing to note about our minority opportunity districts is our threshold is based on the Black voting age population, which is actually a more stringent category than the overall minority population in the district, which would include other racial groups, and it would include children in that list. So the 30% is, actually of eligible voters, but there would be a larger minority population in those districts. We just wanted to be careful that we really went after the kind of the voting age population number, I think, is the way to make sure that we're really achieving that opportunity that is required in the Constitution, or I'm sorry, in the Federal Voting Rights Act. So just something about our maps that is important to keep in mind. Janice asks if there is a CSV file with underlying data. We will be submitting our official shapefile to the official commission, and our data will be available at that time. We don't have that publicly available yet. Looking at the chat. Am I correct in assuming these are suggested maps? If so, what happens if the legislature does not follow the suggestions? So yes, you are correct that these are suggested maps. These are proposed maps by the members of our commission working together over several months and taking the input from thousands of Ohioans who have participated in our process. We hope that the Ohio Redistricting Commission takes this under advisement. We have no guarantee of what they will do, but what we have shown is that this is possible to do, that we had a collaborative process, that we met the requirements, and that is how they also should approach drawing this map. And just a flag, it's not the legislature that will be drawing the maps and deciding on the maps. It's the Ohio Redistricting Commission, which is the 7-member body made up of the 4 legislative leaders and then the 3 statewide office holders, the governor, secretary of state, and auditor. Barbara, I'm glad that you were able to join us with your question about Logan County. Barbara tells us that Logan County voters are not pleased with the splitting of Logan County, which is worse with this model than the split that Logan County has currently. How many counties are split with our model? And it's okay. We're glad that you made it, and we're happy to talk about this. Our proposed map, follows all of the rules about splitting counties. We have to achieve equal population with our districts. So many counties don't have enough population on their own to comprise a district. So there are pieces of counties that have to be added together to get to the point of having a constitutional district. I know that you were concerned about Bell Fountain and it being split in our map. I did some looking at that and it is not split. I shouldn't have had to have looked because you're not allowed to split a municipality under the constitutional rules. And I know that we didn't break any of the constitutional rules, but I checked anyway just to make sure. And indeed, the split is west of that municipality and it is kept whole. I understand the frustration from some counties that are split. You may know, Barbara, I'm a former legislator and represented a county that was split. My county will also continue to be split because we have too much population for just one district, but not enough population for 2 districts. And it's just one of the ways to try to avoid too much splitting. But there are some splits that have to happen. And so your input is very much appreciated. And hopefully the splits are less haphazard if the Constitution is followed, because municipalities cannot be split and counties should not be split more than once.
Can I just add, Kathleen, that I think it's a great question and a great observation. Without the constitutional changes that were made by the legislature, made by the citizens of Ohio through that referendum, there would have been very few boundaries on how many times we can split, very few guardrails. And so the fact that we're down to just a handful of counties were actually split is actually a great achievement for our overall reform efforts. And so I know there will be 1 or 2 counties that may have that problem, but when we look at the maps from 2010, this is a far cry better than what we've been experiencing in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I think that's a good reminder, and hopefully it's somewhat resolved in the Senate map. But again, there will be these, issues from time to time, and I'm glad that you spoke out. And Barbara, I know you also talked about participating at the Lima hearing, and I think it's important to have your voice be heard. So yeah. Oh, Barbara, I saw your additional question too about being hard to kind of zoom in on our map. When we release the final version of the map and submit our map, we will have that in more detail that you can look at and explore our boundaries. Sorry, we don't have that available just yet, but it is coming. So thank you. All right, give me just a moment. Linda, just because your question is shorter, I'm going to answer that first. I do not have that exact number for you. I am working to get that and to be able to put that in our report, but it is the smallest number that we possibly could have. Many counties, though, are split once because of the equal population requirement. But again, those splits are kept as minimally as possible. And in prior drawings of maps, you could split a county a bunch of different times and there'd be no repercussions. So our splits are minimal. I do not have the exact number for you. I'm going to read Richard Pryor's question submitted to the Q&A. Give me just a second.
In the meantime, those of you who still have questions, feel please feel free to go ahead and throw those in the chat or throw those in the Q&A. We'll be glad to try to get to as many of them as we can. Thank you.
I'm going to briefly read Richard's question. So Richard says, Madam Chair, I recognize that both you and your fellow commission member, Dr. Regula, are current or former residents of Portage County and Kent in particular. Having spent 19 years as a resident of the Tree City before my move to Cleveland, I would like to encourage this committee to recognize Kent's specific communities of interest, namely that the city and its residents feel closer ties to Stowe, Cuyahoga Falls, Akron, and the other areas in Summit County than they do to Portage County, often feeling like the county's redheaded stepchild. As a graduate of a high school that drew from across Northeast Ohio, I would urge the commissioners to consider Kent's closer ties to Summit County and to include this in their mappings, both these General Assembly maps and in the maps for the U.S. House District, of which I will be submitting a map. Great. Thanks for that question and feedback, Richard. I am a proud resident of Kent and Portage County. I believe that this map does achieve that pairing of Kent with communities in Summit County in the House map, which would be very different than it is currently. And then it definitely achieves that in the Senate map. In the Senate map, you can see Portage County is contained in that light blue box in the top, in the Northeast Ohio section that contains pieces of Summit and then all of Portage County. But feedback noted, and hopefully this map reflects that, and we may see and hope to see something similar to our map in the official map. So thank you. All right. Let me ask our commissioners on the call if you have any questions or comments that you would like to share with the group. All right, easy bunch tonight. I know it's a Friday evening, but of course, this is an incredibly important endeavor that we are involved in of putting together a fair map and wanting to hear from folks like we did tonight about the real life implications of these maps. I want to encourage you to, if you have further input, you can submit that via email to us at info@commissionocrc.org. You can find that email also on our website, where we do have our maps currently, and where we will continue to be putting information out about the maps, like the more detailed information that some folks were requesting. The website is ohredistrict.org, where that information is. And we appreciate, again, everyone's time this evening, your questions, your thoughts. Looking at a question we have in the Q&A, which communities are in your reconfiguration of the districts now represented by Boyd and Williams? Colleen, I'm going to ask you to put up the last slide with the zoom in on Cuyahoga County. Linda, I know that this is probably not detailed enough for you, but to give you some sense, and we will be putting this information out so you can have a little bit more detail when we finalize our official map. So unfortunately, Portage County, I know right where Ken is. I looked up Logan County, but I don't have a total sense of where Senator Williams and Representative Boyd's districts are in our map. Greg, I don't know if you may have just your knowledge of Cuyahoga County, if that is
Yeah, I
something you might be
couldn't.
able to
Yes,
provide insight on.
yeah, I probably would be reluctant to make a comparison between those two districts that currently exist and the proposed maps. That's one of those excellent questions we need to look at closer. But I think that, again, we believe there's parity with what we have currently, but I will take another look at it and see. But I would believe, because of the compactness of the African-American vote within those two districts, it was probably pretty closely aligned with where they are now. And I don't think there was a lot of room for extension beyond that, from what I remember from our earlier conversations, but we will definitely take a look at that. But I believe that it would be a great sense of overlay from what we currently have, but we'll take a look.
Right, and also just a sense too, if we could flip back to the slide, the previous slide, looking at the Senate district, I know that it's a Lake County district, like I believe it is currently. There's a Cuyahoga Lake district, but that's how the Senate districts, I know Senator Sandra Williams' district wouldn't
Yes.
be shown on the House map, but just
She's much further west of the light blue Lake County district there. But they both pretty much, as you can tell, that's compact. They're going to pretty much fall within that same line. There are some communities in University Heights, Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, and others that merged with the Lake County district through Painesville, that you can see on that map further east and further north. So again, there's not much left of the county African-American population that would not be encompassed by those two seats.
thanks, Greg. That's very helpful. And apologies, Linda, to not have that detailed map yet, but we will make it available. All right, looking at the chat. Don't see any questions there. Okay.
This is Tom. When we put this out, could we also highlight the changes we made in the Montgomery County? I've gotten several questions. I told them that we brought it back into Montgomery County, that is at 49 or whatever that seat number is, but they just want to be able to highlight it. Yeah,
I think that's great. We can do that, Tom, and I'll just mention off the top of my head, for folks that aren't familiar, Montgomery County, of course, includes the city of Dayton. It is on the map, on the House map, it's the light blue, medium blue, and dark blue portions above where Hamilton County and Cincinnati are. We have, I believe, 4 House districts in Montgomery County. 3 lean Democratic, 1 is a minority opportunity district, and then 1 is combined with a neighboring county, and that is a Republican district. If you flip to the Senate map, because you can contain an entire Senate district within the county, we followed that rule, also helping us with our representational fairness number. So there is now a Senate district that is comprised of the 3 Dayton House districts. And that is very different from the current map, which Tom, being a resident of Montgomery County, knows all too well, that county has been completely split apart and fragmented to maximize Republican power from the surrounding areas of Dayton and of Montgomery County. So that is no longer, if the constitutional requirements are followed, that is no longer legal under the Ohio Constitution because of splitting, and then also because of the representational fairness requirement. But yes, we need to really allow people to zoom in on that and understand what's going on there. So we will definitely make that available.
Okay.
Kathleen, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just got back from testimony in Mansfield. So I'm coming in the middle of this. What are the representational fairness numbers for the House and the Senate maps as they currently stand?
They are, so the representational fairness guidelines that we are using are derived from the language of the Constitution, which folks, this is a fellow commissioner, Dick Gunther. Dick worked very hard on helping us compile our criteria for the mapping based on the constitutional language. So if you add up the statewide races over the last decade, you come out with an index of 54% Republican, 46% Democratic. So that was our sort of guidepost for how to determine what is representational fairness on a statewide level. Then honing in on our map, for our House map, we have 55 Republican leaning districts and 44 Democratic leaning districts. So that's a 56-44% ratio. So very close to that statewide ratio that we're trying to achieve. The Senate map has 18 Republican leaning districts and 15 Democratic leaning districts. So that's a 55-45% ratio. Again, almost identical to the 54-46 statewide split.
That's wonderful. Congratulations to the map makers.
Yes, it was it is a lot of rules that need to be followed, but they can be followed. And we have shown that here with our maps. And these are the fair maps that Ohioans voted for, and that they deserve to have maps, either these maps or maps very similar.
Great.
Thanks, Dick. Linda has a question in the Q&A. Do we anticipate that the Republicans calculating the percentages also would end up with a 56-44 ratio? Just a little correction there. It's a 54-46 ratio that we're trying to achieve on the overall representational fairness. And then the House, maybe you're talking about our House map, which is 56-44, and Senate 55-45. We derived our representational fairness overall number using the words in the Ohio Constitution that lay out that representational fairness objective should be achieved by averaging the statewide races over for federal and statewide office, which are President, US Senate, and then the 5 executive offices at the state level. The Constitution lays that out. So we followed that, and I would hope that the official commission, which is, a 5-2 Republican Democrat split, will also follow the words of the Constitution. That's pretty important here, and it's very clearly laid out, and we hope that they follow it, of course.
Kathleen, can I speak to that?
Yeah, we
The
can,
one thing that I would be afraid of, and I hope we can prevent this from happening, is that rather than using all 10 years of elections and all of the elections, that they would cherry pick and say, no, we want to use the 2016 numbers. And they're going to base that on the fact that we don't say in the Constitution all of the elections. We say the elections rather than all of the elections. And apparently that was the issue that they were fighting over at 2 o'clock in the morning in the Senate when the final bill was passed. And I don't know how they can get by with it, because it's pretty clear that the implication is that it should be all of the elections. But that's the only thing that they could do to fiddle the numbers.
yeah, I agree with that. And it is right there in the constitutional language, how to determine that partisanship number. So it is, up to us to work to hold them accountable when the time comes to draw the maps.
And in my testimony today, I had an appendix to my actual commentary, and that was how to work out the partisan lean using all of these numbers. So I actually put every single number for those five election years, or the full 10-year period for all of them, so that there should be no doubt about that. Now, they would have to actually reject my numbers, which came straight from the Secretary of State's database. Or, as I mentioned, they could try to cherry pick and say, no, you can only deal with one election or two elections. But I don't know how you can pull that off given the language.
Agree. I see a question in the chat asking about the timing on a congressional map. I know our commission will be turning to the congressional map drawing process next, which mirrors the official constitution and the deadlines for the different maps. So the final deadline for the state legislative maps is September 15th. The first deadline for the congressional maps in the legislature, which has the primary responsibility for drawing the congressional maps, that first deadline, I believe, is September 30th. And then there are sort of a cascade of deadlines after that. So really the focus right now of our work has been on getting these maps ready and gathering feedback for our constitutional requirements for the state legislative maps. We again will be presenting these maps and following that official process closely, but we will be engaging in a congressional map drawing process as well. So we will encourage members of the public when that comes soon to engage with us in drawing of those maps as well. All right. Commissioners, do you have any further questions or comments for the good of the order here?
I guess I would only add, Madam Co-Chair, that the legislature is down to a handful of days, or the commission of Ohio Redistricting Commission is down to the last few days. Certainly, there was no Ohio Citizens Redistricting Commission of this sort in 2010. And there was no constitution like we've just been able to reform in 2015 and 2018. So people who are watching this process unfold should just be reminded that this is unprecedented in Ohio history. And we've actually made this a lot easier for the legislature by taking the time to hear the voices of the voters, hold hearings, bring a broad coalition together, and actually follow the Constitution, and with the criteria that we adopted a few months ago, present to the public and to that commission what we think would make their job a lot easier. So I would just want to put that out there because I know there's some conversation about whether or not their maps are going to be coming out next week in time for the deadline. September 1st is coming right around the block, and I know I would probably suggest that this might be a good place to start their conversation.
Question in the Q&A, who is preparing the initial draft of the Ohio Commission maps? That is not public as far as the official map drawing process. Right now, we don't have a map. So, TBD on that. And again, they have less than a week to meet the requirement of the Constitution to put that in place. Question from Perry Sabady. Hi, Perry. Nice to have you on. When will the commission adopt rules? Any update today? Apparently, I actually don't know if there's an update today. I am reading in public news sources that there is not agreement on the rules, and they have not adopted rules yet. I've seen something where a Republican member of the commission said that the adoption of rules is what is holding them up from proposing a map. That doesn't make any sense. Of course, you'd like to see them have rules in place, but they are not constitutionally required to have rules in place, but they are constitutionally required to propose a map and hold 3 public hearings on it by September 1st. So while the rules situation has been interesting, it's also frustrating to see the Republicans on the commission use that as an excuse not to produce their maps, which need to be transparent, need to be viewed by the public, and most of all, need to follow the Constitution and be fair maps.
Kathleen, what would be the rules? I mean, wouldn't the Constitution be the rule? Follow the. So what would be the rules they would be debating? Unlike rules of legislative procedure. So what would be the rules they would actually be debating?
That's why I feel like this is a smokescreen. I mean, they're setting up their own rules for how they govern their commission, which is only going to exist, for a couple of weeks here, potentially brought back together for the congressional process. But, it's not, that is not a necessary step. It's an added step that they could go through, but it's absolutely not a acceptable reason to not produce proposed maps for the public.
All right. Okay.
Which I think we're used to hearing reasons like that. So it is pretty silly, but I just want to tell the people who are listening here, don't buy that. What we ought to be demanding and looking for are those maps. I see, Perry. So you're worried that if they don't have rules, they just publish the Republican map, hold 3 15-minute hearings, then take it to a vote. Right now, the rules they have to follow are the rules in the Constitution. And so, they could do that. I would hope that they would not have 15-minute hearings, but they're obviously cutting it very close with their 3 hearing requirement. Again, the hearings that they held all this week were nice and well attended, and people spoke out strongly about wanting fair maps. But those hearings did not meet the constitutional requirement for a hearing once a map has been introduced. If they take it to a vote, they're required to have another vote by September 15th if they are not able to get both minority members to agree to the map. So, and then they would have another public hearing that they would be required to have under the Constitution. I agree that rules would be better, but sometimes the rules can have some traps in them. My guess is, and the work I've done with these Republicans, I don't think an agreement was reached on the rules. And, now we're in this space where we don't have rules, and more importantly, we don't have maps. So let's all stay closely tuned to what happens here. I really want to compliment these questions and this engagement. These are very knowledgeable about the process and about how important each step is. And this is giving me confidence that, we are really going to be present and making our voices heard about the need for fair maps like the ones that we've presented to you. All right, with that, I am going to bring this meeting to a close. I want to say thank you again, commissioners, for being here, for all that you are doing. I want to give you a friendly reminder that our Sunday evening hearing at 5 o'clock, we need you there. That's when we will be approving our final maps, compiling this feedback, preparing our report to be ready for the hearings whenever they get announced before September 1st. So we will see commission members on Sunday. Members of the public, thank you so much for being here. Everyone enjoy the rest of your Friday evening, and thank you. We'll see you again soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye.